Shalom Haverim. I join you today to share something heavy about how someone pretending to serve the highest values of our community has instead engaged in conduct that undermines them. This video will be around 30 minutes long, so please, if you're going to watch, be sure you've got the time and the space, not just to view it, but to take a few breaths and care for yourself if anything herein brings up a strong reaction. For many of us, it will. That said, I will try my best to offer you a container alongside the chronology of disturbing events, including a reorientation to community values, some key concepts that can offer grounding and comfort, and an orientation toward collective teshuva, community repair. You might, at the end of this video, be heartbroken, angry, and confused. I know I would be. That said, I hope to leave you with gentle tools to start coping and, if so moved, to be a restorative agent in community as we model the safety, wisdom, and values of the Jewish psychotherapy space for those watching both within it and beyond. Especially for those of you who may have been approached, taken advantage of, harmed, or otherwise misled by this bad actor, I want to send you strength, comfort, and acknowledgement as you grapple with tough decisions ahead. For nearly the past year, I've been trying to cope with the documented behavior of a bad actor in our community. Based on forensic investigation, including subpoenas, I now know that the same person cyberstalked me for months before launching her attack. She created and deployed numerous fraudulent identities, complete with fake clinical credentials, and used two of those fake identities to call upon her carefully curated list of colleagues and Jewish leaders to excise me from community like a tumor, while a third fake identity was used to love bomb me with flattery and denigrate her colleagues to me in order to build a fraudulent trust, which I declined. This pattern, deceitful impersonation, calculated timing, excessive flattery mixed with attempts to elicit damaging statements about others, reflects entitlement-driven manipulative tactics. She also misrepresented my credentials and character across our community landscape and even used my vital information to amplify the impact of her campaign. The persistence, the disregard for consequences, and the absence of visible remorse caused irreparable harm to my health and my family's well-being, including financial harm, I estimate, in the six figures, and the loss of a chance to give my daughter a sibling. I will need years to recover what I can. For those who've been with us for the last 6 years or longer in other iterations, you might understand this piece the best. When we've come together in the past to grapple with difficult situations, I've had what might be the relative comfort of supporting you in my role as a community docent, providing servant leadership and nuanced wisdom, holding a container for uncomfortable feelings and thoughts that under the weight of a single role. We've navigated themes around countertransference, boundaries, spirituality, divergent and passionate opinions across the religious and political spectra, fear of mortal danger, which is present and has been in our history, grappling with isolation throughout the span of a therapist's career, and more. This time, it was me who was targeted and harassed for months on end. I'll try to hold both roles as best as I can as your injured colleague, as well as a partner in advocacy and a guide in coping with moving forward in self and community care. It is my most sincere hope that while you may leave this video with facts that might feel horrifying, upsetting, and even embarrassing, you'll also leave with the steadiness to know we'll get through this as a community, with the alignment to be guided by our shared values, with the comfort of knowing that you know how to navigate this, and with the relief that this bad actor's harm and influence can be curtailed. And it doesn't imply anything about the rest of us. In this video, I will walk you through the general chronology of events, share the patterns and behaviors that caused them, and provide grounding tools and insights to help you cope, reflect, and take ethical action if you're called to do so. Okay, I'll start in the middle. I'm going to jump around a bit to try to give you the most salient pieces without overwhelming you or myself with this saga that never should have happened. On the eve of my birthday this past year, I began receiving alarmed calls and texts from friends and colleagues about an escalating hostile email from an anonymous sender calling themselves M. Murphy, using the address down-to-earth social worker at gmail.com. This persona presented as plural, so when I say they here, I'm referring to one writer performing as many people. Their carefully curated recipient list included leaders of Jewish organizations, Jewish influencers, and colleagues. They attacked me from seemingly every angle: bad mother, bad speaker, bad support group leader, and accused me of greed and ego and of being demanding, the exact opposite of what our community has experienced from me: generosity, openness, and giving, often at personal cost. Through the end of September, this entity sent a series of escalating, unstable emails to the original list and others. They treated me with unfounded board ac- They threatened me with unfounded board action, misrepresented my leadership credentials and legacy, and promised they would, quote, see this through. I won't amplify their diatribes here, but I will share that the relentlessness and aggression of the emails, along with their fixation on one particular colleague, understandably left me in fear for my life and for my daughter's well-being. The smear campaign tone, black and white vilification, and hunger for control were unmistakable. Even the lesser impacts were devastating. I canceled all travel plans indefinitely, had a publication offer rescinded because of this smear, and had to table other crucial projects for our community and my livelihood until we could find some clarity on who was behind this and hopefully mitigate the harm. Faced with this untenable situation, I had no choice but to hire counsel, a specialty firm known for getting past Google with subpoenas, as my only viable option to unmask the person or people responsible. It took me tens of thousands of dollars, along with hours of time away from family and work, on top of the revenue lost from community sustaining programs I could no longer safely build or offer until I knew who was behind the relentless behavior and had assurances that it would stop. I'd gotten odd emails before, including a series the prior month, October, that left me unsettled. It was a bizarre love bombing correspondence from Jared Leving, supposedly a licensed therapist in New Jersey. Along with excessive praise and admiration for my work and reputation, he seemed to be trying to bond with me by speaking badly about non-clinician colleagues in the Jewish advocacy space, calling one a bored housewife and another an idol worshiper. He eventually spoke competitively about a therapist colleague on the West Coast, describing her negatively and suggesting I move in on her territory. Concepts I don't use and ideas I don't subscribe to. The idealize and devalue swing, baiting for loyalty tests, and goading toward rivalry were classical manipulative moves. I refused all of these manipulative overtures, instead offering him the resource of our free weekly consultation group if he would share his real identity, and then closed the conversation. His last email excitedly praised a colleague. Coincidentally, the same colleague the down-to-earth social worker emails revered and compared me to in one of their missives. I want you to hold on to that. While we were pursuing the subpoena process, long and arduous, another fake identity appeared in December: Lori Rabinowitz, not to be confused with the professor of a similar name. Supposedly, this Lori Rabinowitz was an elderly female therapist in New Jersey nearing retirement. In brief, her emails continued the humiliation campaign, calling recipients to cut me out of community and not collaborate, explicitly naming herself as M. Murphy, the down-to-earth social worker, and claiming she was nearly retired, and then putting in a plug for the same colleague praised in the earlier emails by both other identities. The triangulation and self-promotional through line remained striking. We got pushback from Google at first, but secured the IP addresses for the November account. Those indicated that this user was in New Jersey. This was after many months. We then subpoenaed Google for IP addresses on the October fake identity, Jared Leving, and the December fake identity, Lori Rabinowitz, and sent subpoenas to Verizon on the two IP addresses for the primary one, the down-to-earth social worker, in hopes of discovering the bad actor. Google confirmed that the IP addresses of the other two matched the first one. At that point, we had confirmed that all three fake identities, the male clinician, the plural clinician, and the elderly female clinician, were all one person. But who was it? What unfolded was both shocking and, in hindsight, telling. I also want to name a tactic many of us teach our clients to expect: DARVO, deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. I'm sharing documents, timelines, and direct quotations so that our community can assess evidence for itself. Reasonable people can have many feelings here, and the facts remain. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second for you, but also for me, because this is the part where I'm going to share who it was. Some of you might be shocked, angry, or skeptical, or you might have guessed already. Perhaps many of you will have no idea who this is. Personally, I'm scared for reasons I'll go into in a minute, but also our community is strong and our principle so clear. Our muscle to move through difficult experiences is solid, pardon the metaphor. When it comes to the great wilderness we wander through as Jewish therapists, we know the pain in 2025. Intra-community pain is a different stripe than our focus of recent, but you can get through this too. I want to take a second and do a quick body scan. Just notice what feels strong, loud strength, quiet strength, sweet strength within you, and just hold on to that as you hear what's to come. Okay, so as we moved through the subpoena returns, we first got confirmation that one IP address was an office, dentistry and psychotherapy in Nutley, New Jersey. The second, a little trickier. Instead of being able to open this one right away, we got an impassioned letter from Arizona attorney named Rais Mohammed. For those farther away, Mr. Mohammed is the co-founding partner of a law firm, a law school professor, and the secretary of CARE Arizona. He keeps a presence on social media and is known for commentary at the intersection of high-profile individuals and the law. He is known for pulling out all the stops for his clients. Anyway, this letter was very intimidating about his client and their First Amendment rights. The First Amendment doesn't cover stuff like this, but his confidence was intimidating. We sat on it for a while and then, with a pause, opened the results. It was a residential address in Passaic, New Jersey. The residential account was at the home address of, and the business address was at the work office of Malka Shaw, LCSW, the owner and voice of Kesher Shalom Projects, established less than 2 years ago. By this point, it was nearly summer. It would be months of more trying to get answers and encouraging teshuva before I would come forward here for legal reasons and for spiritual ones. You guys can probably tell I'm anxious about this. It's not comfortable. In the meantime, my health and finances had sharply declined, and unfortunately, while we continued to host all our free Zoom events, as well as our free weekly consultation groups, her behavior had the effect of tabling all of our larger projects, save for a specific retreat we'd been planning for years. And of course, my widely anticipated continuing education offerings couldn't possibly launch when this targeted misconduct hadn't yet been mitigated. Back to Malka. I wish I could say I was shocked. I'm shocked that anyone could behave this way, but not that it was her. In a large, thousands strong community, you sometimes disappoint people, but it takes a very specific kind of pattern to go this far. I first met Malka, a longstanding member of the JTC, when she reached out after October 7th to seek to promote herself. We have boundaries against self-promotion, but I was hopeful. She was working with a colleague who had contributed to the JTC before. In those weeks, the last weeks of my pregnancy, she came across as intense and demanding. I tried to see it as eagerness and pain. She asked to pick my brain, and I offered her extensive unpaid coaching and mentoring as she looked to begin offering CE courses herself and pursue leadership opportunities. I shared lessons about motivation, collaborative learning, mentorship, humility, and parity. I even networked her with trusted and admired colleagues. From the start, the pattern of entitlement, rules testing, and image management was hard to miss. I also confided that before October 7th, I'd been planning to launch my own online CE series, but had decided to delay a year until the year had passed from the tragedy and after my daughter and I each had our next November birthdays. She asked when my birthday was, and I told her. That intimate detail was later used with calculating timing to derail my launch and ruin a special time for my family. Her course descriptions, especially about Jewish cultural competence, countertransference, and identity, were uncannily similar to what I had described, although mine were grounded in years of service and advocacy. Lesson learned. I helped her network with CE providers despite her unyielding persistence in seeking our organization's endorsement, something we're generally cautious about. I found a way to make it happen. But she pulled a sleight of hand with the flyers and then engaged in behavior so objectionable toward another hurting demographic that I had to pull our endorsement. She did not take no well. Boundary pushing turned to pressure tactics. She repeatedly tried to backdoor promote her paid content against our rules and flooded comment sections with her flyers. Even when muted, the evasive workarounds and proxy maneuvers continued, burdening the volunteer team. Other things left me unsurprised it was her. Over the year leading up to the attacks, I noticed she was visiting my LinkedIn increasingly frequently, sometimes daily. It started to feel jarring, so I began taking screenshots before finally blocking her. The monitoring felt obsessive and surveillance-like. Friends and colleagues also began to receive outreach from her close to the times I'd made public statements about collaboration. For the first time since JTC's founding, budding collegial friendships cooled or never got off the ground, and all appeared to have recent contact with her. The triangulation and whisper campaign dynamics were hard to ignore. I ran through all this in my mind and then thought about how all three of her fraudulent identities spoke about her, now knowing it was her typing. Jared Leving, the male therapist in October, praised her while humiliating her colleagues for nefarious ends. M. Murphy, the plural identity in November, wrote an unhinged comparison between myself and Malka, calling her a thought leader, with unbridled praise while demeaning me. Lori Rabinowitz, an elderly female therapist in December, reached out to tell everyone that she wasn't Malka, but also praised Malka in the next breath. And I don't want to forget that Malka, as herself, responded to M. Murphy's email about me, calling out her own avatar for Lashon Hara, saying gossip destroyed the temple, and taking the opportunity to plug her own Kesher Shalom projects. The grandiose self-promotion, coupled with moralizing rebukes from both sides of a fabricated exchange, spoke volumes. As much as I felt better knowing it was truly one lone bad actor, finally seeing the composite of her repeated and sustained behaviors didn't leave me feeling any safer, and they still don't. When someone shows persistent deception, retaliatory intensity, and a lack of empathy, caution remains warranted. Once we had confirmation of her identity, I amended my complaint to formally serve Malka. I did this not to punish her, but to create an opportunity for accountability and repair. I asked if she felt remorse or understood the impact of her actions. I offered to waive all damages if she would acknowledge her actions, apologize, and take steps to make amends to both me and the community she had harmed. It was an explicit invitation to teshuva, a chance to stop the harm, accept responsibility, and begin repair. She has not taken that path. To date, there has been no remorse, no acknowledgement, no movement toward accountability. Instead, I received a communication from her attorney stating that if I continued to pursue this through the courts, I would face a costly, years-long battle that would further take me from my family, my work, and my healing. Well, I took that to heart and I chose to write to the judge to do what is called dismiss without prejudice, meaning it can be refiled and the subpoenas and filings are now part of the public record, which allows me to share their contents legally. And I have an obligation to do that. I didn't ask for this experience, but I have a responsibility to cope with it in ways that move toward repairing the harm, toward me, toward our community, and even toward the people that this bad actor exploited and denigrated for her own ends, perhaps especially so. I still don't know why she did it. I don't move through the world with a personality like that, so perhaps I can't understand it. What struck me most in this ordeal is how far a bad actor will go when she thinks no one's watching and she won't be caught. Given the duration and the planning, I'm concerned about risk to others. I fear for her colleagues and clients. What if she perceives a slight from someone else and does to them what she did to me? What if she's done this before and someone is still in pain? I could not continue protecting the person who harmed me by staying silent, even if speaking up risks retaliation. If there is retaliation or further misconduct following this video, I will document it and route it to appropriate channels. I am not engaging in public back and forth. I'm focusing on safety, recovery, and community repair. I'm also speaking out because it's devastating to move through a community I helped build, feeling terrified of this person and unable to explain to others why connections cooled. As recently as last week, I heard that someone whose work I admire was keeping their distance because of Malka's fraudulent emails. People deserve to know the truth so they can make informed decisions, reach out if they wish, and discern reality from deception. Finally, I understand from her lawyer that continuing in court would be an expensive years-long process, even with the facts on my side. This public statement is my best chance at reclaiming my dignity, protecting my safety, and above all, stopping her from quietly harming others. In wrapping this up and putting back on the other hat, this final piece would feel so much easier if I weren't also the target of the campaign I've just described. Yet I know many of you feel a swirl of emotions like grief, anger, and confusion, maybe even relief to know. You have a right to take time and space to process this information and to decide who, how, and when you share your reactions or take any related action. You have a right to move toward or away from anyone or any project for any reason. You have the right not to be judged for a colleague's behavior simply because they shared a demographic with you. I also want to name something painful but important: the misuse of clinical and spiritual concepts to excuse harm. Citing Lashon Hara as a reason to stand by idly while an abuse survivor brings vetted facts to light betrays both survivors and our ancient wisdom. Similarly, while dialectical thinking can help us cope with the fact that someone once helpful can also be harmful, those same concepts must never be twisted into gaslighting or apologetics for abuse. Please make choices about the past, present, and future collaborations and the use of your platforms, as though one day you'll need to explain those choices to every client and colleague. Just as the bad actor assumed that she would never get caught, the best in us comes out when we act as though it matters who's watching. The public will also be watching how we move forward, deciding whether therapy is safe, whether Jews tolerate behavior like this or stand for betterment, and whether professionals can think and act above the din, modeling ethics for other communities when similar cases arise. My hope is that we respond not by brushing things under the rug, but by saying yes to collective teshuva, recovery, and wholeness. Teshuva here is not about extending grace to an unrepentant actor. It's about us turning toward each other, strengthening our ethics, and being our best selves in relationship with ourselves and with one another. Going forward as your colleague, I need to set some expectations. I am not available for one-on-one conversations about the details of my experience. It's overwhelming and I'm only beginning to recover. The exceptions will be clearly bounded spaces where there's a chance to help others going through similar. Meeting with collaborator organizations for responsible due diligence to support them in moving forward. And giving space to relationships that fractured or never got off the ground at Malka's hands. This ordeal has left me financially devastated and exhausted, so my capacity for uncompensated labor is limited. If you want to help, please share this with those who would benefit and guide conversations away from gaslighting and victim offender reversals. And if you're so moved, be a public voice for our ethics and our grief. Even a simple "I see you" goes a long way. And if you've distanced yourself because of gossip or confusion, please reach out. I'm not judging, and clearing the air will help me breathe again. Maybe it'll be nice for both of us. To preemptively speak to veracity and documents, since obviously this is a video, I haven't screen shared, you can see the case file for the Maricopa County Superior Court by civil case 2024-000320. That's CV 2024-000320. All of these are public records at this point. Therein, you'll find the subpoena-driven proof that points to Malka Shaw's fake identity campaign. You'll also find my case complaint and attestation complete with liberal use of quotes and citations of the legally concerning elements of her behavior. Though not required, I also took the liberty of adding an extra verification and attestation to my documents, signing up for the level of scrutiny that would mean my words would be held up to the same level of scrutiny as court testimony, an indication of my honesty therein and my desire to be completely transparent. You'll notice also that I'm not disseminating the disturbing emails that were written about me. Amplifying the defamatory statements would end up advancing her disturbing goals, which isn't justice, and suffering that indignity does not move our community toward healing. Thank you for sitting with me and with community in togetherness and in light today. Sometimes, especially in the West, when we think about remorse and responsibility as sterile individual bubbles, that the person who harmed is solely responsible for repairing the devastation. Here, the bad actor has shown no interest in teshuva, but that does not mean that it has to be the end of the story. We have a chance to come together as a community to grow stronger, kinder, and more humane through this unfortunate situation. In that spirit, I want to leave with you with two pieces of wisdom, one secular and one spiritual, that have helped me find solid ground in all of this. Marshall Linehan teaches, acceptance does not mean approval. It means acknowledging reality so you can act effectively in it. And Reb Nachman of Breslov reminds us, if you believe you can break, believe you can repair. Together, they call us to courageous humility, anchored in the comfort that wholeness for individuals and community is available if we lean in with an extended hand toward healing and connection. I wish you all a sweet and brave new year, full of knowledge and the earthly burdens and opportunities that give that knowledge weight, meaning, and the chance for connection within ourselves and between one another. Shalom.